In this video, I'm going to show you how to knit this beautiful Sweetest Knit Baby Blanket. This is a blanket made with squishy blanket yarn. It features some lovely eyelet holes, and I've used some variegated yarn just to give it a little bit more interest. So we're going to learn how to make this from start to finish, the cast on, all the stitches needed for the repeat, and then we're going to bind off, weave in ends, etc. So you can find the full pattern on the blog, the full written pattern. We're going to go through the full tutorial here on the channel as well. And you can get the PDF in both my Etsy shop and my Ravelry shop as well. So before we get started, be sure and hit the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiberflux knitting updates. I share patterns like this, stitch tutorials, and lots more. So if you haven't yet hit the subscribe button, be sure and click it and get all the latest updates. So we're going to get started and work on the Sweetest Knit Baby Blanket. For this project, you're going to need a tapestry needle to weave in any ends, a pair of scissors. A tape measure is super helpful, especially if you want to customize the size of your blanket a little bit. I'm going to show you how to both change the width and the height of your blanket, so a tape measure will be super helpful for that. We're going to be using a pair of US 15 10mm knitting needles. Now, if you notice here, I have a set of circular knitting needles. We're not going to be knitting this in the round. We are going to be knitting this flat. But I have some circular needles because if you open them up, you can accommodate a whole lot of stitches on this cord here. So that will be especially helpful for the size of our blanket for a larger project. If you just have a pair of really long straight knitting needles, you could do that. Your stitches might just need to be kind of smushed back on your needle. But again, these are US 15 10mm knitting needles. And if you're curious about this cord, this is a 24-inch cord that I have on here. And that will accommodate these stitches that we're going to be putting on for our blanket. Okay, now we're going to be using 2 balls of Bernat Baby Blanket. I thought this color was so pretty. Now each ball of this is 220 yards. So 2 balls of this would be 440 yards of a number 6 super bulky yarn. Now, if you notice on this particular yarn, the recommended needle size is a US 11 8mm, but we're going to go up a couple of needle sizes because I want it to get have some nice drape and just kind of open up a little bit more. Okay, so if you want to substitute yarn though, just look for a number 6 super bulky yarn and one that recommends that US 11. Even though we are changing the needle size, this would be, you know, if you want to substitute for this yarn. Now the color I'll be using, I'm using 2 balls of the same colorway. This is called Pretty Girl, and it's kind of a combination of lavender and like a bright pink and a blush pink and some white. It does come in dye lots, so if you do end up getting this type of yarn, just know that it comes in dye lots and you want to make sure your dye lots match, so when you knit your blanket up, you get the most consistent color matching possible. Okay, so let's jump in and get started on this beautiful blanket. So I have my working yarn this way. I'm just going to do a quick refresher of the long tail cast on. If you want to watch it in more depth, again, check out that tutorial. But I'm going to have my tail in front of me, and then I'm going to have my working yarn connected to the yarn ball going away from me, okay? So what you want to do is put a slip knot on your fingers, wrap the yarn around your fingers to make a loop, bring the yarn behind the loop, just like that. Now take your needle, reach in and bring up that loop, okay? And then just kind of snug it down by opening that up onto your needle, okay? So that's our first stitch. Now again, we have 76 stitches that we're going to cast on. So we're going to do the first couple of ones together and then kind of depart. So take your index finger and your thumb, and I like to kind of hold it up in the air. See how it kind of comes down in an upside down V? And I'm going to go in with my index finger and my thumb in through the bottom, and then kind of grab it down at the bottom with my pinky. And when I open it up, it makes like a diamond shape, okay? So we're going to go and cast on a couple stitches together, like I said, and then we'll kind of go off on our own. So what we want to do is take our needle, and I'm going to just come in a little bit closer so you can see better. But we're going to come in with our needle, holding it with our hand on this side, and we're going to come up under our thumb, go around and through that index finger loop, and then bring it through the loop on your thumb, just like that. So that's 2 stitches. Now we have on our needle, okay? I didn't drop my yarn, I'm still holding on to it. So I'm gonna go around, around, and through, around, around, and through, around, around, and through, okay? And you're just gonna keep repeating that till you have 76 stitches on your needle, or any even number you choose. If you wanna make your blanket bigger, please feel free to do that, okay? So again, around, around, and through, and you're just gonna cast on your stitches until you get to 76 or the desired number that you like. And every so often, your colors will change if you're using a variegated yarn like me, and I think it's pretty exciting. So when your stitches too get kind of scrunched up like they're getting on mine, see how they're getting kind of ripply here? Just kind of slide them carefully back and get them out of your way, okay? So just keep casting on, and when we return, we'll have the number of stitches that we need, and we'll be ready to start with our pattern. 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, and 76, okay? So we can see all the stitches now. Now if I slide this back, let me just zoom out so you can see. You can see our stitches kind of cover the whole needle, all of our circular needles here. So, the cord. So you can see how, having that circular needle is very helpful because everything's nice and kind of spread out a little bit. Now we do have some tail left. We did estimate because we did the long tail cast on. We're going to weave that in later, okay? So what we're going to do to start is we're going to grab our project and where we left off, where it's connected to the working yarn. 'Cause sometimes when you're beginning, it can be a little bit confusing to knit with circular needles. But it's okay. We're going to kind of put this one aside for a minute. This is going to be connected to our working yarn, our yarn ball, and then our tail. We're just going to kind of put that out of the way and not worry about it. Okay. So grab your needle. We're not worrying about the project. That's just kind of like back here. We're not going to worry about that right now. But grab your working yarn, and what we're going to do for our first row is just knit all the stitches. So for row 1, we're going to knit all of our stitches, and I'm going to come back in so you can see. We'll do a few together. Again, if you want to learn the knit stitch, check out the tutorial up here in the upper right corner, and that will show you the basics and the breakdown of the knit stitch, okay? But if you know how to do it, you can follow along with me. If you've never done the knit stitch though, pause this video, check out that tutorial. It's very helpful and goes nice and slow. Okay, so let's knit all the stitches for row 1. We'll do a few together and then we'll kind of go off on our own. And if you notice, because we're knitting flat, we're not knitting in the round with these circular needles, this is not connected, okay? It's just back here. Okay, so we're just knitting all the stitches. So knit the first stitch, knit the second stitch, and so forth, all the way across your row, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and knit all my stitches, and then when we return, we'll rejoin and move on to row 2. Okay, just coming up to the end of row 1, those last few stitches that we're knitting, and now row 1 is complete. And as you can see, as we've moved from this needle to this needle, kind of slid around to the other side, okay? So just like when you're knitting flat, we're just going to kind of ignore the fact that these are circular needles. We're going to turn our work. So you're just going to turn the whole thing, okay? Now, we can kind of push this out of the way, and what we're going to do is we're going to work on row 2 now, okay? So row 2 is a purl row. So we want to make sure that our yarn is coming down the front of our work and just kind of straighten everything up, okay? So for row 2, what we're going to do is purl all of our stitches this time, okay? So bring your yarn down the front of your work, and you're going to take your needle. Now again, I have a more in-depth purl stitch video if you'd like to check that out. If you're not familiar with the purl stitch, I'll do a quick overview here, but check out that video if you'd like a more in-depth tutorial. So put your yarn down the front. We're going to take our needle, go in, insert the needle so that the needle's over top, wrap the yarn around that top needle only, and then bring it from the front to the back, picking up that loop and push it off, okay? Again, check out the other video if you need a more in-depth tutorial. and we're just going to purl all the stitches. So purl that first one and every other stitch after that, okay? So keep going with your purl stitches, and when we rejoin, I'll show you how to finish up this row and we'll move on to row 3. Okay, just coming up to the end of row 2, where we were just purling all the stitches, and now we're just on our last stitch and row 2 is complete, okay? So once again, you're going to turn your work, flip that whole thing over, and then just get it all straightened out here. We're going to move on to row 3. So row 3 is the row we're going to be doing a little bit of like an open lacy look, okay? So we are going to be knitting on this row so our yarn can be back here instead of in the front like it was when we were purling. So to begin row 3, what we're going to do is we're going to knit 1 stitch, and then we're going to do a sequence of yarn overs and knit 2 togethers, okay? So we're going to go yarn over. So to yarn over, wrap the yarn around that right needle only, and then knit 2 together. For the knit 2 together, you're going to insert the needle into 2 stitches instead of 1, and then wrap the yarn around that bottom needle and just knit the stitch as you normally would, okay? So we're going to do this all the way across until we have just 1 stitch left, okay? So let's do a few together and then we'll kind of depart and do it on our own. So next, yarn over, and then knit 2 together. Again, yarn over, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 2 together, all the way across until there's just 1 stitch left, okay? So go ahead and do that, working your yarn over, knit 2 together sequence all the way across, and we'll rejoin when we get to that very last stitch, and then we'll finish up row 3 and move on to row 4, okay? Okay, we're just coming up to the end of row 3, doing our yarn over, knit 2 together sequence, and now we have just 1 stitch left on our row. So all we're going to do with that last stitch is just knit it. Doing a knit 1 at the beginning and a knit 1 at the end will just give it a nice little, kind of like a border, little bit of more of a solid look on the edge, okay? So row 3 is complete. For our final row, our last row of our pattern sequence, we're going to turn our work once again. And for this row, row 4, we're going to just knit all the stitches, okay? So go ahead for row 4 and just knit all the way across every single stitch, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then when we rejoin, we're going to knit the end of row 4. Okay, just coming up to the end of row 4 where we were just knitting all the stitches across, okay? So that's the end of our pattern repeat. Now let's kind of look at what we have so far. So far we've done a knit row, we did a purl row, we did a row with some yarn overs and knit 2 together to give us a lacy little open look, and then we did another knit row. So all we're going to do for the whole rest of our blanket is we just want to repeat rows 1 through 4 over and over and over again until basically the blanket is as tall as you would like it to be. We have our width established here, but now we're establishing the height as well. So you're just going to repeat it over and over and over again until it's about as tall as you want it to be. Now, one important thing to note is instead of ending on row 4, you want to end on row 2 because that will give you a more of a finished edge and mimic our starting edge a little bit more. We want to give it a little bit more of a sturdy edge to mimic when we started, okay? So keep repeating row 1 through 4, 1 through 4, 1 through 4, but you want to end on row 2, okay? So I'm going to keep going with my pattern repeats, and when we rejoin, we'll have quite a bit more height to our blanket, and we'll finish our blanket off. We'll start binding off, we'll weave in some ends, etc. Okay? So keep repeating rows 1 through 4 over and over again, ending on row 2. Okay, we are coming up to the end of the row here, and we have worked quite a ways, and we'll look at it in just a minute, but we are going to start binding off our stitches. So once the width and the height are about the same, or if you want a rectangle, you could keep going. But once you get the height of the blanket that you want, we're going to start binding off. So like I mentioned before, we ended on row 2. That'll give us the nicest edge. We don't want to end too close to these eyelet holes. It just doesn't look as finished on the edge, and we want it to match where we began. Okay, so end on row 2, and then I'm just going to turn my work because we're going to start doing our bind off. Okay, so I'm going to slide this down, and we're going to just do a basic bind off for this. And I'm going to show you how in case you're not familiar. So all we're going to do is we're going to knit 1 stitch. We're going to knit the next stitch, and then we're going to take our needle, our left needle, and we're going to, and let me just zoom in so you can see this a little bit better. But what we're going to do is we're going to take our left needle and we're going to go, that first stitch that we knit, we're going to lift it up, over, and off of the needle. Okay, so let's do that one more time. Knit another stitch. Now take your left needle, lift it up and over this loop here, and then off the end of the needle. Okay, and you're just going to do this all the way across until there's 1 stitch left. Okay, so knit a stitch and then lift it up, over, and off. Knit a stitch and lift it up, over, and off. Okay, so keep going with that, and you can see we already have a nice little edge happening. So keep going with that, and when we rejoin, we're going to do this till we just have 1 stitch left. So we'll have 1 stitch left on our needle and we'll finish up our blanket. Okay, so now we just have 1 stitch left here, and we're going to knit that last stitch. And then there's 2, so we're going to lift 1 up, over, and off. And now there's just 1 on this needle now. Okay, so what we want to do now is fasten off. We're going to take our scissors and just give it a little bit of a snip. And again, this type of chenille yarn leaves a little bit of a crumb, so I like to pull that off just to keep things nice and neat. Now, just loosen this ever so slightly and hold on to it. Don't let go, because that's your last active stitch. And then you can take your tail and just send it through that loop. Okay? And our blanket is done. And with the bind off edge, I like to just kind of straighten things out. And it looks absolutely beautiful. So you're going to have a couple of tails left. 1 at the beginning, 1 at the end, and then 1 where you joined the yarn on the new ball of yarn. Okay, so just go ahead and with all of your ends, thread your tapestry needle, and then you're just going to weave this end in one direction. And this is a variegated yarn. It'll blend pretty nicely. And this type of yarn the blanket yarn is very forgiving because it's squishy and the ends stay put. Okay, so we're going to go in one direction with our tail, just kind of straighten things out. And then we'll come back in the other direction with our tail, just so it stays put. Okay, and then just repeat that with your other ends as well. Okay, and then when you're done weaving, you can snip it and just repeat with all of your other yarn tails. Okay, all the ends are woven in and our blanket is complete. It looks beautiful. It has some lovely little eyelets and the colors are playing out beautifully. So that is how you knit the Sweetest Knit Baby Blanket. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure and click the subscribe button to get all the latest Fiberflux video updates. Thanks again.